Welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. Mary Kate Mackey, moments away, but first, Rise Gardens, a product that you can utilize inside your own home.
Rise Gardens is a revolutionary hydroponic gardening system for your home. Instead of food traveling hundreds or even over 1,000 miles before it hits your plate, harvest the veggies, herbs, and gardens you need for dinner tonight in the comfort of your home. No green thumb required knowledge. Gardening made easy with the Rise Gardens app. Step-by-step guidance from seed to harvest. A complete garden on a shelf, and it comes with everything you need to grow healthy and the freshest food for you and your loved ones. Fully customize your garden to your needs and preferences. For more information, get your Rise Garden. Visit risegardens.com.
Let's go to the hotline and bring in our guest for this week.
Mary Kate Mackey is an author, writer, speaker, and gardener. She's an award-winning writer and the recipient of 10 Gardening Communications International Media Awards. For over 20 years, her byline has appeared in numerous magazines. Welcome to the program, Mary Kate.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we thank you for taking time out of your day, not only about to educate Holly and myself, but all of our listeners. And I'll start with this question. What was a recent garden mistake you made, and what did you learn from it?
Since all gardeners make mistakes, my most recent mistake was that I cooked some gladioli bulbs by accident. I was using them as upright accents in established containers, and it's great because you can just tuck them right in. Mm-hmm. And I'd planted about half of them, and then I left the others in a bucket on my south-facing deck, and I fried them. But would you like to hear about the worst mistake I've ever made?
I think we all would.
Yes.
Okay. My worst mistake in 30 years of gardening on the same property was not spacing the trees, the little tiny baby trees I planted back then. I put them too close together. They were so little, mm-hmm. and that I had a failure of imagination on how big they would get. And now I'm going to have to remove one in order for the others to be there. Oh, it's a mess.
That was my next question. How did you fix that?
Well, I learned a trick. I haven't fixed the trees yet, but I did learn a trick, which is that I can keep certain measurements in my mind. For instance, I know my hand span is 8 inches, and an awful lot of plants get planted 8 to 12 inches apart. So I can use my hand to say, okay, all right. And my trowel is a foot long, and my arm span is the same as my height. So that's 5 feet 6 inches if I hold my arms straight out. So if I have a shrub that's like 4 foot width eventually, and it's just tiny now, I can stand in the bed where I'm going to plant the shrub, and I hold my arms out and turn around and try to see how many other plants my new plant is going to hit when it's fully grown. That's my tip.
And you know, when people say, well, I tell people, you know, lettuce, spinach, not that big of a deal. But when you're planting trees, you got a one-shot deal at this, and you
right.
got to know what you've got to do your research on the tree thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, you know, we have these varied weather patterns. They're getting worse and worse each year. How do you conserve water and efficiently water your garden in the best way?
Okay, well, I live with a well. I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and it's a very deep well, and I can't draw it down for fear that the walls will collapse. It's like 500 feet deep.
Okay.
So I have to be incredibly water conservative. I use drip tubing with those built-in emitters, those little snaky tubes.
Right.
I use that in all my containers and all the beds close to the house, because that way I can keep an eye on it, like if squirrels are biting it, or I cut it with my spade. I mean, I know I've done it. And then further away from the house, I go ahead and I have low-flow sprinklers. But any of my sprinklers, I use water measuring cups. Any straight-sided can works well, like cat food cans are great. But I put them down and I check how much water is actually getting delivered in that bed. And the classic advice, of course, is 1 inch a week if there isn't any rain. But I can get away with half an inch. If the beds are heavily mulched, they're right there. I can get away with half an inch a week unless it's very, very hot. But here's something that I do. I haven't ever seen anybody do this. I use a combination of drip with the sprinklers. Now, I've heard people say, oh, you can't do that. You'll blow out the drippers. Nope. What I do is I hook in one of those half-inch drip hoses, the black hoses, and then I hook it right into the sprinkler pipe. So when the water's running for the sprinklers, it runs through the drippers. And then I put it down in places where the sprinklers don't hit too well, like right on the edge of a bed, or sometimes right under the stand of the sprinkler. It's like a desert under there. And so then that's where the little drippers go. And so I use both together. And then I do have a timer box that allows me to water different sections of the garden each day. And that's kind of how I have to go about it.
Well, even if you had unlimited amount of water, it doesn't make sense for anybody just to overwater what doesn't need to be overwatered either.
Right. And the plants won't thank you for it.
Right.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So your latest book, The Healthy Garden, Simple Steps for a Greener World, what can our listeners to expect, and maybe something notable to pique their interest when they pick up a copy?
Oh, okay. The Healthy Garden, it connects the good practices that you do in your own garden with what's happening in the greater natural world. It puts them together. So it goes beyond your back fence. Now, for instance, in the book, we talk about how to choose plants for your own success by looking at what grows well around you. Like, look in your neighbor's garden and look in parklands and look in botanic gardens and in the wilderness areas. And the other thing about this book is it's not just the opinions, just my opinions or my co-author Kathleen Brenzel's opinions. Well, what we've done is we've featured 20 other garden experts who offer their good advice for a variety of subjects, folks like Melinda Myers and Joe Lampel and Bree Arthur and Tony Gattoni. And on top of that, the pictures in this book are from 30 of the finest garden photographers I know about. And so it's a book that's practical and it's inspirational. And it's published by Abrams Books in New York. And they are known for both quality and beauty. So that's the book.
And all the gardeners that you mentioned, we've had on the program. So I feel very honored that we have interviewed those high quality gardeners that you felt was adequate to have in your book.
Well, yeah, that's great. I mean, that really is wonderful.
Well, let's talk about ground cover. What are some of your favorites? And for people who are like, whatever, what are the reasons to use ground cover?
Oh, that's a good question. My take is that nature never has bare soil. So the easiest and the most efficient thing to do in a garden is to emulate nature. And a couple of inches of mulch works well. Wood chips seem to be the mulch of choice at the moment. But even better for me is a living mulch, and that's ground covers. And the trick is to find plants that do three things as to be a ground cover that's good for you. One is grows under a foot tall, and two would be that it tolerates both sun and some shade, because even in a sunny bed, later on the bigger plants are going to grow up and cast shade, so it's got to be able to tolerate a bit of both. And three, it's a certain Goldilocks quality. It's a ground cover that's not too aggressive, but it's not too wimpy, or it won't block the weeds. So my favorites are, for shade, I like variegated saxifrage London Pride. I just love that plant. You got to look it up. It's really great. And for sunnier spots, I like Erniaria, which looks a little like a hardier baby tears. It's very fine. But the other one that's really easy is Creeping Thyme, because it just makes these mats and the weeds cannot get through. So, but that's for me. I'm in the Pacific Northwest, and where you are can be very different. So maybe it's some of the low-growing grasses or the prairie plants. They might be perfect. But my advice is audition your ground covers. You buy a few of several different kinds that catch your eye, and you try them out. And it so much depends on your condition. So if they're too aggressive, you pull them out immediately, and you don't have them all over your garden, taking over everything. But if they're too wimpy, you won't have busted the bank to have them. So definitely audition. I think that's the best thing. But the great thing about using living mulches is that you're not a weeder anymore. You're more like a referee. You're pulling back some ground covers in one place and you're encouraging it in another. And in the end, the real reason for all of this is that you've created a plant community. And that's where they're all working together to support each other. And the real bonus there is you work a lot less.
Fantastic. So you see garden hacks are all over the place now, online, the little short videos and stuff.
Some aren't true.
Some aren't true, but
Yeah.
some are, also too good to be true. Do you have a favorite realistic garden hack to share?
Well, okay, I thought about this, and I think my hack is not a shortcut, but it's seriously important advice, which is never trust the plant tag.
Okay.
That comes with your plant, because they're tiny and they can't cram everything you need to know into a tiny piece of plastic, and they don't say enough. I mean, for instance, tree tags are often, they'll state the height and the width at the end of 10 years. Mm-hmm. When the tree may actually, it can say, 15 feet tall in 10 years. Well, that's great, but that tree might be eventually 50 feet tall. And so I asked somebody in the business, why do the tags do that? And she said, well, people move every 7 to 10 years, so that's all they need. Oh, so you've given a problem to someone else in the future. Not my idea of a healthy garden. So my hack really is actually makes for a longer, not shorter, but back up the plant tag info with some reliable source, like the Missouri Botanic Gardens website. I love that one. I go to it all the time. And that will help you find out so that you can have success with any plant that you put in the ground.
Right. And just with anything in life, you got to do your research. You can't rely on somebody else to make the decision for you.
That's right. And it has to be research from some place that has a good reputation, knowledgeable stuff, not just somebody's great, hey, I'm in my backyard.
And go to your local independent garden center. Those people typically care a whole lot more than the big box store.
Absolutely. And many of them are trained.
Yes.
So they're not only trained to give you good information, but they're trained to keep the plants in good shape for you.
And a good independent store or good independent garden center will prevent you from buying something because you want it, even though they know it's going to fail. They'll keep you from doing that.
Yes, they will. And they'll say, well, if you want a blue-flowered plant, why don't you try these salvias over here? Because you've got blistering sun next to that sidewalk, and this may do well for you.
Absolutely. Well, Mary Kate, we greatly appreciate the time you've offered and the knowledge you've shared with us. How can people find out more about you and get a hold of your book?
Well, the book is available anywhere books are sold. Independent bookstores. You can also get it online. And actually, Abrams often has the best price for my book. So if you go to the Abrams website, that's the publisher, and just put in The Healthy Garden, you can often pick up a very good deal on the book. So I would do that. And my website is my name, Mary Kate Mackey, all one word, .com. And if anybody listening has questions on this show, you can email me through my website. And if you put the show name in the header, I will get back to you, I promise.
Well, Mary Kate, we thank you for the time you've offered us and the education that you provided.
Oh, well, you are quite welcome. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.